rolling on to topic number 4, and Roy Williams, the great North Carolina and University of Kansas coach, retiring from the game of basketball and stepping away from college basketball, retiring from his job at the University of North Carolina. And personally, this is one of my favorite coaches. So it's kind of tough to see him go, and it kind of ages me, to be honest, where I'm seeing one of my favorite coaches obviously walking away from the game.
Yeah, I've been a North Carolina fan. They're one of my favorite college basketball programs, really since the 90s, even since the 80s, just because of Jordan. I always watched North Carolina with Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson. The list goes on and on. And one of my favorite teams was when Coach Williams won his first national championship with Sean May, Rashard McCants, Raymond Felton, Wayne Ellington, and a few of those other guys were so much fun to watch. And it's hard to see him go. In college sports, in both football and basketball especially, in professional sports, it's the players who seem to last longer than coaches. So the players sort of identify with the organizations more, where, you think about, the Packers and it's Aaron Rodgers. And right now with the Chiefs, it's more Pat Mahomes than it is Andy Reid. And Mahomes will probably outlast Andy Reid there. In college sports, it's the coaches that last, because they're there. Some players are only there for a year. The players at max are there for 4 years. The coaches are the ones that stand the test of time. So when you see a guy like Roy Williams leave North Carolina, a guy who's from North Carolina, I think he was their JV coach back in the 70s. That's where he kind of got his start. And then, he had a great career at Kansas. Never won a national title, but lost the national title to Syracuse back in 2003. But just a fantastic coach. Has over 900 wins. He's third all time behind Krzyzewski and Jim Boeheim, who are both coaching, which is crazy. He's still coaching. He's just one of the greatest coaches of all time in college basketball. From everything people have said all week, he's one of the great guys in college basketball, which is nice to hear, especially with we're hearing about some other college basketball coaches, particularly one that got fired today, and Sean Miller, who have done some not so nice things off the court, whether it's recruiting or other things. But Roy Williams, class act, phenomenal coach, 3 national titles, been in the Final Four several times. And he never really had that first team, I think, had some great players, but he's never really had that, first pick in the draft, top player since he's been at North Carolina. Ty Lawson was really good. But Tyler Hansborough was a great player in college, but wasn't really a great NBA player. Cole Anthony and Kobe White have been good in the NBA and so forth, but he never had that, even like a Jason Tatum at Duke or somebody like that, or Brandon Ingram was at Duke, or Zion Williamson. So, being a coach in the ACC and his success at North Carolina, he was just unbelievable, and college basketball is going to miss him.
It's one of those things where it proves how good of a coach he was, to be honest, Pat, because when you say like Tyler Hansborough was obviously one of the best players in college basketball at the time, and then he goes to the NBA and is just kind of an average NBA player, that kind of shows really what Roy Williams had him doing in his system and how he was coaching him up, how he was motivating this young man at the time. And I think that's one of the things that, Roy Williams is a great motivator of young men, and you have to be at the college game. Coached a little bit of college ball myself, so I know college football, not basketball, but still you got to be able to connect with your players and motivate them so they can go out and deliver every game multiple times a week usually. And in college football, it's only one time a week. In college basketball, it's multiple times a week that they usually have to go out and deliver. Like we just said, Gonzaga played, 34 games, maybe more than that this season? So it's like you have to really stay on these teams. He was such a great coach. And I think people forget about his dominance at the University of Kansas. I think he was a really good coach there, a really dominant coach there. That's what put him on the map for when this job opened up from Dean Smith, that Roy Williams was the man that everybody knew was fit to basically replace Dean Smith, who was a legend in himself. Obviously, they play in the Dean Smith Dome there at North Carolina. Dean Smith is a legend at North Carolina. So then you replace him with arguably another legend, and Roy Williams, and what he does brings the 3 national titles, brings you all these great players to the NBA. Like you said, some of them pan out, some of them don't. But like I said, to me, that proves just how great of a coach he is, that he can get this collection of talent and go out and recruit this collection of talent, because recruiting is one of the hardest things to do in college basketball, especially like you said, when you got Krzyzewski down the road, and we're just talking about miles down the road at Duke, trying to steal your players and recruit the same players to come to Duke, right? So it's one of those things where college basketball and in college sports in general, it's so much harder to have success and continued success. But Roy Williams did it wherever he went, which was obviously at Kansas and at the University of North Carolina. And I think he's going to really be missed at UNC. I'm a huge UNC fan myself. I've always just loved UNC, loved their players, loved their style of play, loved their colors, that baby blue. How can you not love that baby blue, no matter what uniform they're wearing? It's just amazing. So I've just always been a huge Tar Heels fan. And then now they've replaced him with the first African-American coach for North Carolina, Hubert Davis. So I think that's even big news that we can, put in this category as well, that North Carolina is even making big news with his replacement. But Roy Williams is really a great basketball coach. And I think one of the things Marcus Page talked about, one of his former point guards, talked about that, not only did he make him a better player, but he made him a better man. And I think when you're a high school coach and when you're a college coach, that should be our number one goal is, producing great young men and young women and making sure that they're going to be successful in life. If they happen to get to the pros, that's just a bonus. And I guess that's, really what Roy Williams is really doing there at UNC. And so it's sad to see him go, but, a legend. And it's just one of those guys where, legends never die. They just kind of, hang around.
Exactly. He's not going anywhere, even though he's not going to be coaching. They'll remember him for a long time. There were two coaches after Dean Smith that UNC tried to replace him with. One was Matt Doherty, who was very good at Notre Dame. He's a young guy. They brought him in. He didn't do very well.
Short stints,
exactly. And then there was, I think, Bill Guthrie was the guy after him. He had been a long time assistant, wasn't long for the job. And then they brought in Roy Williams, who was an assistant under Dean Smith, proved himself at Kansas, is a North Carolina, born and bred guy. And then they were like, we got to go back to the well here, get a Dean Smith assistant in Roy Williams. Now they're getting a Roy Williams assistant in Hubert Davis, who has been an assistant coach for several years now at North Carolina, along with being a very good player, but not a superstar. He's really good in college, but not a superstar NBA player. Sometimes we see superstars become head coaches. Even, like Michael Jordan couldn't be a good head coach. Larry Bird was a pretty good head coach in the Pacers. Nash, we'll see how he does, definitely. But, like Magic Johnson wasn't a good head coach. The superstar players have a tough time kind of recognizing what another player that's not as talented as them is doing wrong. They sometimes say, why can't you just do this? Because they were so naturally gifted. But when a guy like Hubert Davis, can probably do a better job of saying, okay, when I was a player, I couldn't do this, so this is how I had to adjust. He's going to do a great job at North Carolina.